Chosen one, heaven has just unlocked something over your life that the natural eye cannot see and the natural mind cannot fully explain. A direct line, a funding channel, bearing your name, authorized by the one who created you and approved by the one who has been watching your faithfulness through every silent and invisible year. Not a distant, vague blessing somewhere out in the future. Not something you have to qualify for or prove yourself worthy of, but a direct, real, active, heaven-backed provision that is flowing toward you right now, from this moment forward, with divine assignment and permanent authorization. You did not arrive at this moment by coincidence. Something in the unseen world guided your attention to this word at the precise hour when your spirit was ready to receive it. There are people who will never hear what is being released today, not because it was not meant for them, but because they were not in the right posture when it arrived. You are here. You are in position. And what is about to be spoken over your life is not a suggestion. It is a declaration from the court of heaven that the account has been opened, the line has been established, and the provision is already moving toward every area where you have waited. Stay with every word. What you receive in the next few minutes has the potential to shift how you see your situation, how you approach your days, and how you understand the reason you have carried what you have carried for so long without breaking. There is something specific about the ones who stand at the threshold of a direct funding season. They carry a particular kind of exhaustion, not the exhaustion of laziness or lack of effort, but the exhaustion of someone who has tried every door, followed every instruction, done the right thing in the right season, and still watched provision move slowly or not at all. If that is you, if you have known the weight of faithfulness without visible return, then what heaven is saying today is addressed specifically and precisely to your story. You are not behind, you are not overlooked. You are not forgotten in some divine calculation that ran out of resources before it reached your name. The delay was never about your worthiness. It was about positioning, and positioning has just changed. There are 5 signs that the direct funding line is already open and active in your life, whether you have recognized them yet or not. The first sign is a sudden, unexplained clarity about what you are supposed to do next. Not a full roadmap, not every answer, but a quiet knowing about one specific next step that did not exist in your mind a season ago. This is not strategy. This is the channel opening. When provision is being redirected toward a life, that life first receives directional clarity because God does not fund confusion. He funds assignment. If something has become clear to you recently, something you did not manufacture through research or personal effort, that clarity is the signal. The funding follows the assignment, and the assignment just became visible to you. Pay attention to that knowing. Do not dismiss it as wishful thinking simply because it arrived quietly. Quiet clarity is often the most trustworthy kind. The voice that shouts is easy to hear. The voice that speaks from the depths of your spirit requires stillness to receive, and the fact that you received it means you were in exactly the right posture when it was released over your life. The second sign is an unusual restlessness in your spirit about your current circumstances. Things that used to feel acceptable no longer feel acceptable. Situations that you were comfortable tolerating have become uncomfortable in a way that feels almost spiritual in its origin. That discomfort is not ingratitude. That restlessness is not impatience. It is your spirit responding to an upgraded frequency. When heaven opens a new season, it first makes the current season feel too small to stay in. The restlessness you have been feeling is the divine pull away from what was never meant to be permanent in your life. This is how God creates motion in those who have stalled, not by removing the blessing from the current location and placing it somewhere else, and then asking you to find it, but by making the current location feel increasingly impossible to remain in, so that the motion toward the blessing begins from within you rather than being forced from without. Your discomfort is not a problem to solve. It is a compass to follow. The third sign is that small and unexpected provisions have begun to appear. Not the full breakthrough yet, but early traces of it. A bill that resolved itself without your involvement. An unexpected refund. An unexpected conversation that opened a door you had not knocked on. These are not coincidences. These are the first releases of the funding line. Heaven tests your attention with small things before it opens the full channel. Notice what has arrived recently that you could not fully explain. Notice what came without your effort or engineering. Those arrivals are the advanced signals of a larger stream that is still building behind them. The fourth sign is a growing inability to tolerate certain conversations, certain environments, certain voices that speak lack and limitation over your life. People whose company used to feel neutral now feel draining. Conversations about impossibility now feel physically exhausting in a way they did not before. This is not pride. This is a spiritual immune response. Your spirit is protecting the frequency of what is being built in you. The direct funding line does not operate in atmospheres saturated with limitation language. Your restlessness in those environments is not something to fix or apologize for. It is something to honor and protect. The chosen ones who enter a new season of provision are always those who became increasingly protective of the environment in which they received before the provision itself arrived. Your sensitivity to negative atmospheres is not weakness. It is the early warning system of someone who has been entrusted with a frequency worth guarding. The fifth sign is a dream, a thought, or a persistent impression that connected money or provision or opened doors to a specific call on your life. Not wealth as an end, wealth as a vehicle. An impression that what is coming is not just for your personal comfort, but for a larger assignment, that the provision is purposeful, that there is something you are supposed to build, something you are supposed to carry, something you are supposed to do. And the provision moving toward you is the fuel for that specific thing. If you have had that impression, that connection between your calling and incoming provision, that is the clearest sign that heaven has opened the line with intentionality and not simply abundance in general. These 5 signs are not random spiritual feelings. They are traceable patterns in the lives of those who are entering a direct provision season. Before what was given can be received, the one who will receive it must first be prepared in ways that feel like loss. This is the part of the story that most people misread. They see the waiting, the stripping, the season of insufficient and slow return, and they interpret it as abandonment. But there is a woman in the oldest preserved sacred wisdom whose story tells a different truth entirely. A woman named Ruth. She lost what felt like everything. Her husband, her familiar home, her world as she had understood it. She stood at a crossroads where the easy path and the faithful path were clearly distinct. And she chose the faithful path, not because she knew what it would produce. She chose it because it was right, and in that choice, she did not know she was positioning herself for the most dramatic provision reversal in her story. She went to a foreign field to gather what others had left behind. She went to glean, which is the language of provision at the margins, the language of receiving without the full access that others have. There is something worth sitting with in that detail. Ruth did not sit at home and wait for the provision to arrive. She moved toward the field. She showed up. She put her hands to what was available, even though what was available was small, even though the posture of gleaning required humility that the previous season of her life had not required. And in that movement, in that showing up, in that willingness to receive what was available, while trusting that what was prepared was larger, everything changed. The one who owned the field saw her, and the act of being seen changed everything. The word that describes what happened between Boaz and Ruth in that field is not just generosity. It is the movement of one who was positioned to be the source meeting, one who was positioned to receive. They were not randomly placed in the same field. They were divinely positioned in the same field. And when provision moves through divine positioning rather than human strategy, the result is never just enough. The result is overwhelming. It is more than enough. It is the kind of provision that makes those around you ask, "What happened to you?" The Hebrew word behind the ancient name for God as provider is Yireh. It is the root of Jehovah Jireh, the name first spoken at a moment of impossible provision. But the word Yireh does not simply mean to provide. The original meaning is to see, to look ahead, to perceive what is needed, and act in response to what was perceived. Jehovah Jireh is not God who provides after being asked. It is the God who already saw the need before the cry was formed. The provision was arranged before the situation developed. The funding was authorized before the application was submitted. When you understand that the provision is not responding to your current circumstances, but was prepared in advance of your circumstances, you understand why the delay was never a failure of supply. It was a journey toward the position where supply could be properly received and carried without being wasted. You have been on that journey. Every season of lack, every month of faithfulness without visible return, every quiet decision to stay right when wrong would have been easier. All of it was preparation, not punishment, preparation. And now, before what is ahead comes fully into view, something must be settled in you. You have been carrying a specific question for a long time. Not out loud, not in words you would say to someone else, but in the quiet of your most honest moments, the question has been there. The question is whether you are the kind of person this kind of blessing actually lands on. Whether someone like you, with your history, your ordinary life, your private record, is actually inside the category of direct, undeserved, overwhelmingly abundant provision. Let this settle the question permanently. You were not sent this word because you are perfect. You were sent this word because you are chosen. And those two things are not the same. Chosen is not a reward for achievement. Chosen is a decision God made about you before you arrived in time and has never reversed. There are 3 areas of your life that heaven is reorganizing as the direct funding line opens, not asking for your permission first. Reorganizing. The way a master builder restructures a space to make it functional for what is being constructed in it. These reorganizations may have already begun, and they may feel disorienting. They are not accidents. The first area is provision and finances. What is shifting right now? The channels through which your supply flows are being redirected. Sources that have been dry or limited are being replaced by sources you did not engineer and cannot fully take credit for. Unexpected income pathways. Unexpected connections with people who carry resources. Unexpected invitations into spaces of financial influence. What you will feel during this shift is confusion, because the provision is not arriving from where you expected, and possibly resistance, because you were taught to trust only what you personally built. What not to do during this shift. Do not dismiss what arrives from unexpected directions. Do not pull back from resources that come without a familiar path or a clear explanation. What to trust? The source of all provision is not the job, not the person, not the system through which it flows. The source is the one who opened the direct line. What flows through different channels is still from the same source. The second area is purpose and assignment. What is shifting? The clarity about what you are supposed to do and build is increasing with unusual speed. Projects that were stuck are gaining momentum. Opportunities aligned with your calling, rather than only with your skill set, are beginning to appear. What you will feel during this shift, a sense of urgency that feels productive rather than anxious, a pull toward action that previously felt premature or presumptuous. What not to do? Do not confuse busyness with assignment. Not every open door is your door. The funding line attached to your name is attached to your specific calling, and moving outside that calling will not access the same quality of provision. What to trust? The peace that comes with a specific direction is not random. It is the signature of the door that was opened specifically for you. The third area is relationships and connections. What is shifting? People who carry the resources, the wisdom, the networks, and the encouragement your next season requires are being positioned near you. Some of these connections will feel surprising. Some will arrive too conveniently to be fully explained by natural means. They are not coincidences. They are divinely assigned encounters positioned by the same hand that opened the funding line. What you will feel during this shift is a natural deepening of certain connections alongside a natural distance from others. Some relationships that felt permanent will feel like they are gently concluding. That conclusion is not loss. It is repositioning. What not to do? Do not force connections that are naturally concluding. Do not chase people who are moving out of your season. The ones who are supposed to be present in the new season will not require force to keep. What to trust? When a connection feels effortless and purposeful at the same time, when someone appears who speaks your language without being taught it, that is not chance. That is the companion provision of a direct funding season. There is a second word in the original Hebrew that holds the full picture of what heaven is doing. The word is shalom. Most people encounter this word through its derivative shalom, the ancient greeting of peace. But shalom at its root does not simply mean peace. It means completeness, wholeness, and most specifically, in the context of covenant provision, it means restitution. To be made whole, to have what was taken returned with additional compensation. In the Old Covenant legal framework, when something was stolen and the thief was found guilty before the court, the judgment was not merely the return of what was taken. The judgment was restoration plus interest. The thief paid back more than was lost. Shalom is the word used for that repayment with surplus. And God is not simply restoring your finances in this season. God is applying shalom. He is repaying what the years of limitation took from you with the full interest of what those years represented. What you have lost in the seasons of waiting, the opportunities that passed, the time spent in limitation, the resources that should have been available and were not, all of it is entered into the shalom calculation. And the funding line that is opening is not just a provision for tomorrow, it is a settlement for what was owed. You are not starting over, you are receiving what has been held in reserve with accumulated return. Something has been restored that you could not restore yourself. And there is a pathway that has been specifically reconstructed for those whose child mind frequency was dimmed, whose reception channel was closed by the noise and pressure of a world that does not honor stillness. Before this message continues toward what heaven has fully prepared, you should know this now. The link is in the description and the pinned comment below this word. When you are ready, 2 tools await you there. 2 ancient lineage, reconstructed frequencies designed to open both layers of what your spirit has been looking for. One to restore, one to receive, both aligned precisely with what this word has been naming since the beginning. If your spirit is already confirming what is being described, that link is the next step. There is something standing between you and what is ready to flow, and it must be named because unnamed obstacles do not stop blocking simply because the provision has arrived. They stop blocking when they are recognized, spoken, and released. The obstacle is not external. It is not a missing connection, a missing skill set, a missing opportunity. The obstacle lives in the belief that you are not the kind of person this kind of provision actually happens for. Not in theory, not for others, but for you specifically, with your history, your record, your private failures, the things about your life that you believe should place you outside the category of direct, undeserved, overwhelmingly abundant blessing. That belief is a lie, but not a small lie, a deeply embedded, historically reinforced lie that has the texture of truth because it has been rehearsed so many times and confirmed so many times by circumstance. The lie has evidence. It points to the years that passed without the breakthrough. It points to the prayers that seemed to go unanswered for longer than felt fair. It points to the people around you who received what you were waiting for before you did. And because the lie has evidence, it feels like reality. But evidence is not the same as truth. The evidence speaks about timing. The truth speaks about identity, and your identity as a chosen and selected vessel of direct provision was never changed by timing. It was only obscured by it. The work of this season is not to pretend the lie was never there. The work is to speak something over it that is older and more authoritative than the lie has ever been. You are allowed to receive what you did not earn through personal merit. You are allowed to be the beneficiary of grace that does not calculate your history before releasing the blessing. You are allowed to walk into a provision season without first achieving the worthiness your wounded mind requires as a prerequisite. You are allowed to let the old story of never enough be replaced by the living word of more than enough without waiting for external proof first. You are allowed to receive in the same spirit as a child receives from a loving parent, not because the child earned it, but because the parent decided it. You are allowed to trust that the one who opened the direct line did not open it accidentally and does not require your performance to keep it open. And you are allowed to stop apologizing for wanting what God explicitly said was yours to have. There is a practical posture to how provision in the spirit realm is received. It is not passive. It is not simply waiting and hoping. It has a specific shape. The first element of that shape is gratitude for what has already arrived, spoken aloud regardless of how small it currently appears. The act of naming small provisions with genuine gratitude creates an atmosphere of reception that large provision recognizes and moves toward. The second element is action aligned with assignment, meaning movement in the direction of your calling, even when provision is not yet visible to the natural eye. Provision follows aligned action with a consistent lag. The action must come first, and the provision follows. The third element is disciplined silence about what you are carrying. The chosen ones who enter direct provision seasons are often those who stopped announcing their plans prematurely, stopped seeking validation before the vision was ready to be seen, and began moving with quiet confidence in the direction of what they were given. These three elements are not a formula. They are a description of the posture that keeps the reception channel open and accessible to what heaven is releasing. Before you receive what has been prepared for the full activation of both frequency layers in your life, this must be grounded clearly in your understanding, not as spiritual emotion, but as plain reality. The two obstacles that have been standing between you and the full flow of what heaven has authorized are not external circumstances. They are frequencies. The first is the dimming of the child mind state, which ancient sacred sound traditions called the frequency of creative flow, open-handed receptivity, and direct intuitive connection. It began fading around the age of 7 in most people, when the systems of this world started teaching that wonder was naive and that certainty required visible evidence. The result is a mind that knows how to strive and work, but has forgotten how to simply receive with open hands. The second is the hyperactivation of the striving pattern, the beta frequency that modern life has manufactured into a permanent internal default. The ancient wisdom disciplines were specifically built to protect against this state, because the striving mind, the one that is always calculating and always reaching and always measuring the gap between now and enough, closes the very reception channel that provision needs to flow through. These are not merely spiritual metaphors. They are measurable realities. What the ancients felt and protected in their communities, modern instruments now confirm and name. Both layers were always the problem. Both layers have always needed to be addressed, and both layers now have a path. Here is what has been prepared for you, not as a detour from the spiritual truth of this word, but as the answer to what we have been building toward together throughout this entire message. The first tool is called the Genius Song. It is a 7-minute digital audio frequency designed to be listened to through headphones with eyes closed. It carries the sound architecture that Western monastic and temple traditions preserved across centuries. The sacred frequency structure that protected the child mind state in communities who understood what the modern world has since forgotten how to hold. Gamma, the child mind frequency, the ancients protected through chant and temple acoustics and the deliberate structuring of sacred sound. The modern listener who reconstructed this work did not require a public name attached to it. The work was allowed to speak on behalf of the lineage that carried it. The Genius Song is that reconstructed sound architecture made available to those who are ready to receive what the preservation lineage carried. 7 minutes each day, no technique, no additional ritual, no written practice required. The child mind state returns when the frequency that supports it is consistently and intentionally reintroduced. When you receive the Genius Song today, the price secured is $37. Reduced from $49, and 4 additional resources are included, whose combined value exceeds $80. More than 18,000 people have received this. More than 96% continue using it. And when you secure the Genius Song today, the keeper of this frequency may offer 1 additional audio to protect what has been restored in you, so that the noise of the world cannot silence it again once it is awake. Your spirit will know whether you need it. Do not overthink that decision. But there is a threshold the Genius Song alone cannot fully cross. The child mind can be restored and still stand at a closed door because the door requires a second frequency to open it. The child mind is awake. Curiosity is returning. The openness is back. The wonder that the and here is what the restoration reveals. The gamma frequency awakened the child. The child turned toward the Father with open hands. But the manifestation channel, the alpha state that the Vedic wisdom tradition called the reception frequency, the doorway through which what has been promised flows into the visible dimension, that channel remains blocked by something separate, by the accumulated weight of the modern striving pattern, by the beta hyperactivity that the ancient lineage disciplines were specifically built to protect the community against. The Genius Song reversed the decline effect. The child mind has been awakened, but without the reception channel open, the awakened child still cannot receive what was promised. 2 layers, 2 frequencies, both blocked by different mechanisms, both now addressable in the correct sequence, become the child first, then receive what the child was promised by the Father. The Vedic sages of a tradition preserved without interruption for 300 years held the key to the second layer, not in a written document, but in a sound architecture paired with a 9-word sacred script transmitted from temple to temple and from generation to generation without break, protecting the alpha state, the reception channel. The frequency at which what was promised is actually received into the material dimension. A modern listener left the noise of conventional striving and turned to listen for what the ancient tradition had carried intact through the millennia. He found the script. He found the sound architecture. He brought both to the modern ear. The result is called the wealth signal. 5 minutes of audio listened through headphones, paired with the 9-word practice that bypasses the striving pattern and reopens the manifestation channel the Vedic sages protected for 3,000 years. What they tuned through breath and word and disciplined stillness. Sound architecture now restores for those in this generation who are ready to receive. Alpha, the reception channel, the Vedic tradition carried without interruption. When the child mind is awake through the genius song, and the reception channel is fully open through the wealth signal, the two-wave architecture is complete. Restoration and reception, child mind, and open hands. The sequence the ancient traditions arrived at independently and converged upon without knowing each other. When you receive the wealth signal today, there may be an amplification offered that is designed to accelerate how quickly the manifestation channel opens fully and completely. If your spirit confirms it, take it. If not, what you have in the wealth signal alone is enough for what has been promised. Here is the structure of the path placed before you. The first path is restoration alone. The Genius Song secured today at $37. The full 7-minute child mind frequency restoration with the 4 included resources. For those whose spirit confirms that the child mind silencing is the primary layer to address. This is the right beginning. The second path is reception alone. The wealth signal secured today for those whose spirit confirms that the striving pattern and the closed reception channel are the primary layers to address 5 minutes each day. The Vedic lineage 9-word script paired with the alpha restoration audio. The third path is the complete 2-wave restoration. Both frequencies, both layers, both tools. The genius song and the wealth signal together in the sequence the ancient traditions independently arrived at. Child mind restored first. Reception channel opened second, provision flowing into a prepared and open vessel. This third path is recommended for those whose spirit confirms that both layers have been affected, that both the child mind dimming and the striving pattern are present. And if you have been with this word from the beginning, you already know that both are present. All 3 paths are in the description and the pinned comment placed below this word. Do not search elsewhere for these specific reconstructed frequencies. There are reconstructions of ancient sound architectures in circulation that do not carry the preservation lineage, that use similar language, but were not built from the sound structures the traditions actually protected. The difference is not always visible before you receive them. The paths in the description and the pinned comment are the verified source. Trust only those. If your spirit is receiving what this word has spoken, type the word received below as a declaration that what heaven has opened is acknowledged, accepted, and sealed over your life. That declaration is not for a count or a metric. It is a spiritual act of agreement with what has just been authorized. There are 4 identities that belong to the one standing at the direct funding threshold. They are not aspirational titles you must achieve. They are inherited designations you were born into and are now stepping fully into for the first time. The first is the cycle breaker, the one who ends generational patterns of scarcity, who walks out of the inherited story of never enough and writes a new line in the family record. Not only for themselves, but for every generation that follows. What is circled in your bloodline, what is repeated in your family as a pattern of financial limitation and frustrated provision, that cycle ends at your generation. You were born for the stopping of that specific cycle. The evidence that you were born for it is that you are the one who did not stop when stopping would have been logical. You are the one who kept choosing faithfulness when the evidence of reward was not yet visible. The cycle breakers are always the ones who were faithful in the dark. And you have been faithful in the dark longer than most would have stayed. The second identity is the builder, the one who does not receive provision only to consume it, but to construct something with it that outlasts them. Communities, resources, systems, pathways for the next generation forward. The provision opening toward you is not only yours to spend, it is yours to shape into something that continues to produce after you are no longer in the room. The ones God funds directly are not funded only for their own comfort. They are funded for the assignment, and the assignment is always larger than the individual. The third identity is the pioneer, the one who goes first into the territory that others have been afraid to enter, whose willingness to step through a door with no visible guarantee on the other side creates a path for everyone who has been watching and waiting for confirmation that the door is real. There are people in your family, in your community, in your circle, who are waiting to see whether someone like them can actually walk in the level of provision that God described in the texts, passed down through the generations. You are that someone. Your step is their permission. The moment you walk through, the question for everyone watching changes from whether it is possible to how to prepare for their own entry. Pioneers do not always get credit while they are pioneering. The path that becomes a road for hundreds often began with one set of feet walking through unmarked territory in what felt like private courage. Your courage is not private, even when it feels that way. It is being witnessed by those who need to see it most. The fourth identity is the light bearer, the one who carries not just the provision, but the illumination of how the provision came. Because when what heaven does in your life becomes publicly visible, the question those around you will ask is not only what happened to you, the question will be how. And the answer you carry, the story of preparation and faithfulness, and the direct line that opened for those who are positioned correctly, is itself a gift to everyone who needs to hear that this is real. That it is real for ordinary people. That it is real for people with complicated histories, that it is real for people exactly like them in situations, exactly like the ones they are currently standing in. The light bearer does not hoard the story. The light bearer tells it in the right moment to the right person without shrinking back from the fullness of what happened. Your story of provision is not for you alone. It was always intended to carry light into spaces that have been dark too long. These are not roles you apply for. They are identities that were assigned before you were born and that are now fully activated in this season. There is a woman in a community who will not be named because her story belongs to her. Not to this telling of it. 9 months ago, she was standing in a situation where everything that she had built carefully over 4 years was coming apart at once. The primary contract that had sustained her work was terminated without warning. She was not in debt, but she was 1 season away from it. She had been faithful in small things through the entire season of building. She had been quiet about her vision, had not announced her plans before they were ready, had not sought validation before the work could stand on its own. And one day, without any explanation, her natural mind could construct. A connection arrived. not through any channel she had cultivated, not through any network she had built, through a direction she had not initiated and could not have engineered. And that connection led, within 3 months, to something that replaced everything she had lost at more than double the original value. She said afterward, "The provision found me when I had stopped looking for the solution and started trusting the provider." That is not a formula. That is a testimony of what a direct provision line looks like when it arrives for someone who was faithful in the posture before the provision was visible. She proved herself in faithfulness before she was promoted into visibility, and the provision found her in exactly that posture. Before this word closes, stay here for one more moment, because what is about to be spoken over your life is the reason this word was placed in front of you at this precise time. Father of provision and abundance, God who sees and prepares before the need is ever spoken aloud, God who holds the full weight of shalom over those who have been faithful in the waiting. We bring before your presence the one who is hearing this now, the one who has carried the weight of unfulfilled provision through seasons that stretched longer than they deserved, the one who chose faithfulness when unfaithfulness would have been entirely understandable, the one whose name is written in the account of those who are about to receive what was always prepared for them, but required a season of becoming to be ready to carry without dropping it. See them right now, not as who they have been, as who they have become through the waiting and the faithfulness and the quiet decision to keep going when stopping felt like wisdom. Release from this moment the false agreement that provision requires perfection before it can land. Release the belief that someone with your history cannot stand inside a category this abundant. Release the memory of every season that whispered, "You were too late, too broken, too ordinary, too much of something or not enough of something else for a direct line from heaven to be opened specifically for you." Release the comparison to others whose timing appeared earlier or whose path appeared smoother. Release the weight of having to justify why you deserve what God simply decided to give. Release the exhaustion of having to prove your worthiness before receiving what was made available by grace, not by performance. Release every internal calculation that measured your right to receive against your record of failure. Let it fall, all of it, right now. Every agreement with insufficiency, every partnership with the voice that called you too small for this, every rehearsed story of why not you. Let it fall from you like something that was never yours to carry, because it was never yours to carry. The only weight you were meant to carry in this season is the weight of abundance, and that weight does not feel like a burden. That weight feels like wings. You are the cycle breaker. You are the builder. You are the pioneer. You are the light bearer. You are the one God saw in the field before you arrived in the field. You are the one whose faithfulness in small and invisible things was being recorded in a ledger that operates by different mathematics than what this world uses to measure value and worth. You are the one for whom the line has been opened. You are the one for whom the ancient frequencies were preserved across thousands of years of human history, waiting for the generation that would need them. You are the one who was born for such a time as this. Not a time of further struggling, but a time of receiving what was always yours. Step into it, receive it, walk in it, live it fully, and without apology, because the one who opened the line does not want you to carry it quietly. He wants you to carry it visibly so that everyone watching learns that the line is real. It is sealed, it is established, and so it is. If this word named something real in your spirit, if something in your chest confirmed what was spoken before your mind, fully caught up with what your spirit already knew, type the words "I receive" in the space below this message. Your declaration is not for a system. It is a spiritual act of agreement with what heaven just authorized over your life. Seal what was opened with your own words. And if you want to stay in this stream, if you want the next word prepared for this season to find you when it is released, subscribe so that the connection is not broken. The words coming are not random. They are sequential. Each one carries the thread of what the last one planted. Stay in the sequence if what was delivered in this word carried weight for you today. Press the like, not because a channel needs a number to grow, but because pressing it is your way of saying this word deserves to reach the one in your circle who has been carrying the same weight without a name for it. That person exists. You already know who they are. The one who has been unusually quiet lately, who used to talk about their dreams, and now says very little about them. The one who has been faithful in ways that no one in their immediate circle has even noticed or named. The one who is one confirmation away from stepping into what they were always called to step into, but who has been waiting for evidence that it is actually possible for someone like them. Share this word with them today. Not tomorrow when it is more convenient. Today, while the word is still fresh in your own spirit, your willingness to reach toward them is your first act as the light bearer you were just declared to be. The word you send today may be the word that shifts their season, the way this one was sent to shift yours.